Hey, so I thought I would come out here and talk a little bit about something that isn't necessarily astrology related. And I was thinking, should I put it here on my mainly astrology channel, or should I put it on my Enneagram channel? Because it is something that uh, could go in both potentially. Because my Enneagram channel, which is called Being Enneagram 6, check it out if you haven't already. I can link it in the box below. That Enneagram has a lot to do with the different ways that human beings perceive life and the way they react and the way they, the ways in which they interact with each other and the different perceptions that we have. And it's super interesting to me. And but I thought I could go in here as well. So I want to talk about some ideas and some thoughts that I've had about just the way that people interact and the way they receive and perceive and share information, if that makes sense. So I think a lot of times when people are reacting a certain way, it doesn't, you might, okay, how do I put this? So you might feel a certain way about somebody's reaction and you might internalize it, which is kind of natural. But a lot of times the way people react to things has a lot more to do with themselves. And this is something that a lot of us are aware of, although it takes time to kind of fully connect to this idea. A lot of times people are just expressing from their heart and from their personality, maybe from their complexes, their psychology, their astrology, their Enneagram type, anything. So it just depends on what framework you use, what lens you use to look at these things. You could use astrology, you could use the Enneagram. But something that I have to remind myself sometimes is that, if somebody is reacting a certain way, that actually says more about them than it does about me, even if I'm in the vicinity, I'm in this interaction as well. I will interact the way that I choose to interact, or the way that comes naturally for me to interact in that moment. And I'm not expecting anybody else to take what I say as gospel, or to think that the way that I react or the way that I act or the way that I talk or the way that I do anything, the way that I interact with them, that they have to be like that as well. And I think most people actually are not necessarily expecting that, even though that might come across like that. But I have to remind myself sometimes is that it's probably not the case that they're expecting me to be like them. They're just expressing themselves. People express from their own values, from their own heart, from their own personality, from their own psychology. It's so interesting, but it's something that we have to remember sometimes. We have to kind of remind ourselves. So, what was I going to say? So, people are doing things and interacting in ways that aligns with their beliefs about life, or about themselves, or just their beliefs in general. So I think people are always trying to fulfill their own needs in some sense. Does that make sense? So like that's something that we learn about a lot in the Enneagram and also astrology. You could look at astrology in this way as well. That if somebody is, let's say, venting a lot, that is fulfilling their own need to vent or their own need to express their anger in some way. It has nothing to do really with the other person. It has nothing to do with the situation even. It's just the way that they're coping with it. It's the way that they're choosing, let's say, or being called to, let's say, or the way that it comes naturally to them, let's say, to deal with the situation. So people are always trying to fulfill their own motivations and their own needs. If I spend a lot of time alone, and an extroverted person, a very extroverted person, gets annoyed at me about that, which has happened before with somebody that I was living with previously. Like if I choose to spend a lot of time alone, that is fulfilling my own needs for solitude in that moment. It has nothing to do with the other person, mostly. And they're expressing their own extroverted needs for connection, for mingling with me, with people. Whatever we do in certain situations or just in general, like we are trying to fulfill our own needs and our own motivations. So it's not something that you necessarily have to analyze too much, and also you shouldn't take it too personally, I think. But of course, it is natural to take something personally if somebody acts a certain way with you. There are certain limits and there are certain lines that people probably shouldn't cross. But in general terms, in broad terms, people are trying to fulfill their motivation and their needs. So whatever you're motivated to do, that is the way that you're going to act, if that makes any sense. I was thinking about this and thinking about how to word it, but I could probably word it better, but that's kind of how it's coming out. So bear with me. If somebody's venting a lot, they're fulfilling their own needs. If somebody is, being alone a lot, or, using a lot of distractions, that is also they're fulfilling their own needs. If somebody has a need for a lot of stimulation, they might want to be in places where there's a lot of people all the time. They might want to use a lot of, stimulating activities or things to support that idea or that psychology that they have of needing stimulation. If somebody has a need to ground themselves, they might choose to be alone a lot, right? And that is not personal to anybody else. That is what they're trying to fill. They're just trying to fulfill their own needs and their own motivations by doing that. Let's say if somebody has the need to achieve something in the world, and that's something that they very much carry with them, and that's something that's a big part of their personality or their psychology, that they need to achieve something, then a lot of their actions are going to support that idea. So they will maybe dress a certain way, little things like that even. They might dress a certain way, they might want to look a certain way, they might want to speak a certain way, so that they can feel that they're being more successful, or that they have more of a chance of being successful in some way or achieving something in some way. So a lot of their little micro actions, if that makes sense, will actually support that bigger idea, or that bigger goal or psychology that they have. So even little things like the way they dress, the way someone dresses, or the way someone speaks, or what they do in general, in little micro things, it's actually supporting a bigger belief and a bigger need that they have. I'll try to think of another example. So if somebody is very motivated to express themselves artistically, they might dress artistically. And people around them might think, well, why is that person wearing such strange clothes? But they have an inner need and an inner psychology that is, let's say, leading them to dress that way, because that is supportive of something that they believe, which is that they need to express themselves in order to survive in the world, if that makes sense. It's not that they're going to die if they don't express themselves artistically, but they have a need psychologically. We call that like survival. They have a need to express themselves, and so the little things that they do, the way that they do the little things in daily life, are going to support that idea that they have, or that psychology that they have, or whatever it is. So if I have a need to learn a lot, I might analyze, I might take in information in a way that supports that need that I have to learn. And so it's not something that people should be taking personally when other people are acting differently from them, or from what they expect. So we're all doing the best we can for the most part, and we are all, let's say, trying to fulfill our own motivations and our own needs. And it's just something to kind of keep in mind in interacting with people, in learning Enneagram, in learning astrology. Everybody has their own birth chart. Everybody has their own psychological tendencies. And so really we're all trying to survive in a sense. And we're trying to thrive in some cases, but we're trying to survive in a way. And so we're just trying to fulfill our own stuff, like our own needs, our own motivations. I hope I didn't repeat myself too much, but if you'd like more content from me, I do talk mostly about astrology here, but I talk about other things sometimes if I get ideas. So if you'd like more from me, do subscribe if you haven't already. Check out my other channel, Being Enneagram 6. where I talk about Enneagram, and especially Enneagram 6, but also other thoughts about the Enneagram, which is a great personality tool, or like psychological tool to understand motivations and personality. If you haven't heard of it, check it out. And leave a like if you like this, and leave a comment if you have any observations of your own. Thank you.